When you speak, your brain is doing more than pulling words from memory. It's managing internal competition. Multiple possible words become active at once, and your brain has to choose the right one. Today, we'll look at what this process relies on using Chapter 8 and 11 from the 5th edition of Cognitive Neuroscience by Banish and Compton. Then, we'll look at a CU Boulder study by Snyder and others that shows how inhibition, language, and anxiety all intersect and what happens when this system breaks down. In Chapter 8, Banish and Compton explain that understanding and producing language involves stages. After accessing the meaning of a word like cat, your brain activates related verbs like purr, meow, or nap. This is lexical access. But to speak, you must select just one response. This is lexical selection. It becomes harder when multiple choices are strongly activated. This process depends not only on the language system, but also on the brain's ability to resolve that competition. When looking at Chapter 11 in the textbook, it explains that executive function helps us stay goal-focused, resolve conflict, and select among competing options. One key player in this is the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, or the VLPFC, which applies top-down control to prioritize relevant information. In the context of language, the VLPFC helps us choose the best-fitting word and inhibit alternatives. Without this kind of control, fluent speech breaks down, especially under pressure or distraction. Chapter 11 also discusses inhibitory control, the brain's ability to suppress irrelevant activities so the right response can emerge. One of the key tools here is GABA, the brain's main inhibitory neurotransmitter. In the VLPFC, GABAergic inhibition helps quiet down competing word activations so we can make fast, accurate selections. When this system isn't working efficiently, our brain gets noisy, and that leads to slower or more effortful language production. Moving on to the CU Boulder study, Snyder and colleagues tested this idea in a verb generation task. Participants were shown a noun like cat and had to quickly say a verb like meow or purr. When more options were activated, selection took longer. The study found that people with higher anxiety had greater difficulty in these high competition trials. fMRI data showed less activation in the VLPFC, suggesting weaker inhibitory control. When participants were given midazolam, a drug that increases GABA activity, their performance improved. The study gives concrete support to what Chapter 8 and 11 describe. Word production depends on both language system and executive-level inhibitory control. So why does this matter? This research reveals that language isn't just a matter of vocabulary, it's about control. Chapter 8 gives us the process of assessing and selecting words, while Chapter 11 shows us how that selection is guided by brain systems that filter, inhibit, and prioritize. When those systems are affected by anxiety, distraction, or low GABA, the whole process slows down. That's why cognitive neuroscience studies both the what and the how of behavior. To wrap up, when you speak, your brain's language system proposes options, and your executive system chooses one. Chapter 8 explains how the options arise, and Chapter 11 explains how your brain picks the winner. Snyder and colleagues show us what happens when that control weakens. It's a perfect example of how cognitive neuroscience integrates behavior, brain function, and emotion to explain even everyday actions, like finding the right word.